Good morning and welcome to another Telehealth Today weekly meeting. Today is November 18th. It is 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am James Hongs, the founder of Telehealth Today. And I know I've been talking about the website. I know everybody's wondering where it is. I've seen it. Okay, I've seen it. It looks good. The developer doesn't want me to show it yet. We're still ironing some things out. I'm sick of telling people a date when it gets pushed. I know I got a birthday in 4 days. That's going to be my new deadline. 3 days, actually. That's going to be my deadline. But any day now, it's looking good. People are going to like it. It's going to work. But enough about the website. Today, as always, I have a special practitioner that I'd like to introduce to the public. And this week is no exception. Her name is Lori Bruton. She is a breakthrough mentor. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Miss Lori. I know she's been through tough times. She's overcame them. She wants to teach you guys how to do the same, as well as find a passion. And with hers, I know it happens to be travel writing, so she's probably going to touch on that as well. But Lori, without further ado, it is my pleasure to have you here. Thank you for being here. The stage is yours. Welcome.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. And as James said, I'm Lori Bruton. I tell people, think of it as brewing a ton of coffee. And I am author, speaker, coach, and travel writer. And I wanted to tell a little bit about my story today and why should you care? So there was a time that I was interviewed by Les Brown. And he asked me a question to tell him a defining moment in my life when nothing was ever the same. And I won't go into the details of that other than to say, I told him one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. When I had lost hope, almost lost my life. And yet he took that story and made it into a message of hope. And now people call me the Queen of Hope. And from there, that's when my book was born, The Lori Factor, Live the Life You Were Born to Live. And Les Brown even wrote the foreword. So what does that mean? What is the Lori Factor, you may ask? So just to give you the highlights, L stands for love yourself and get a larger vision of yourself beyond your circumstances. O is overcome the challenges with optimism. And R is reinvent yourself and redefine yourself. And I is invest in yourself and step into your true identity. Because Warren Buffett once asked, what was the biggest investment you can make, the smartest investment? And he said, in yourself. So just know that when you invest in yourself, whether it's time, money, anything that means investment, define your word of investment for yourself, but know that it's worth it and you're worth it. And that's where, rewinding back to where I used to be, when I was broken, lost hope, felt unworthy, and that's when I almost lost my life. And then I went from breakdown to breakthrough. And I'm excited to say that the old Lori is gone and I am the newer version of myself, which is an ongoing process, by the way. I have now learned how to align and define my goals because there was still a missing piece. In fact, because I said that, now I got to show you the cover of my first book, which was Whole to Whole Journey to Hope and Transformation. And you can see the girl on the pier looking out, and she's all in puzzle pieces, but there's that one piece missing from her back. And I won't give you the spoiler alert of what that all represents. You'll have to get the book and find out. But just know that so many of us feel like there's a missing piece in our lives. And we're like, what is it? Sometimes it's just we've lost ourselves and we've put our identity into other things, other people, and we've silenced ourselves. We haven't found our voice. And a lot of you have your own message, your own story to tell that's going to help a lot of people. And I truly believe once I got brave and courageous to speak up and not only write my story, but be on podcast and do speaking events to verbalize my message, because I know it's going to help change lives and save lives. And that is what I'm doing now, is helping people with emotional wholeness and therefore break through. You know, what resistance are you having? What's been holding you back? And since I'm able to identify and have identified those things for myself, and again, it's an ongoing process, but I'm a lot farther along than I used to be. I mean, like I said, I almost gave up on myself and everything. But I said, no, I got to give up, because Les Brown said, if life knocks you down, try to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. So don't let anything keep you down. And I know you're here for a reason today. You are meant to hear this. So whatever resonates with you, I'm glad to help in any way. And like I said, I have my books and I want to help people and help them show up for themselves. So you have any questions for
Yeah,
me so
no,
far?
that's good. That's great. Thank you. So yeah, so just to get started, you said you had like a major breakthrough that you were kind of like almost out, and then you just had a breakthrough and you started to pick yourself back up again. Can you express that breakthrough and you know what did it for you that really turned it around for you?
Yes. So I was actually on a stage and that person asked me, well, what do you love to do? And I said, I love to write. I've always loved to write. And then somehow he started asking me about, well, are you in a relationship? And at that time I was, and again, asked me a bunch more questions. And he said, you do know that's a toxic relationship, right? And I said, are you sure? I wasn't truly aware of it. There were probably some clues that I was ignoring, but that is the biggest thing to realize. It was a toxic relationship. And that's now what was my biggest breakthrough. Not only realizing it, but deciding I can't go on like this anymore. It's not healthy for either one of us. So sometimes we have toxic relationships with other people, even with ourselves or in business or with family. So I decided to break up with self-sabotage and toxic relationships and then help others do the same. So I'd say that was my biggest breakthrough, is realizing that I do have value. I learned how to love myself and spread the love and know my identity and be done with toxic relationships. So it really gave me a knowing more of myself and who I truly am. Because so many of us, we walk around with masks, so to speak, just pretending, putting on the makeup. And if, some of us lipstick, I'll just say, James, did you put your lipstick on today? But in other words, just covering up and pretending everything's fine when really maybe it's not. And there's so many of us that just put on that good face and the smile and say, yeah, it's great. And some things, I'm sure some things are, But what if there's more? And what if you're having resistance or you haven't dealt with certain things that you didn't even know, as a friend of mine says, we're stuck in your hard drive, that we just stuff it down. And that is what led me to my breakdown. Is for years I just was stuffing, and wasn't allowed to speak up. Like as I was growing up, it was not encouraged to speak up. It's like, oh no, you just be quiet, don't interrupt. So I don't know if any of you can relate to that, but that's some of my story. And we all deserve to have a voice and to get those breakthroughs. So I'm hoping that answered the question of like those major key points of where I was and those major breakthroughs.
Yeah, that was good. And then let me ask a follow-up question because I feel like there's probably a lot of people out there that feel like they may be in a toxic relationship, like the one that you mentioned. But however, it could also look scary to people to leave this person that they're counting on or they've been with when they don't have someone else, ready to date them or to be in that relationship. So how did you overcome to that fear and how would you tell other people to overcome it?
Yes, that's a good question. It was the hardest, scariest thing I ever had to do. And then on that stage, Gary asked me, so are you ready to do something about it? Or are you going to keep doing what you've been doing and stay where you are? And some kind of courage rose up inside of me. And I just stood up. I said, all right, I'm ready. I'm done. And I actually made that phone call right then and there. And I confronted it because so many times nobody likes confrontation, and just keep going along. But I made the decision. So I think that's part of like, are you really ready to be done? And sometimes we can't wait till we're all the way ready. But to make a decision and then to take action, those are the main two things. And once I did that, it was still a journey. I mean, I remember that verse in the Bible. It says he comes to heal the brokenhearted. Well, yeah, I was one of the brokenhearted, and I can't say there's still certain things that come up. Of course, we're human, but yet you can overcome a broken heart. They can heal. So that's the good news. But also, that was it when I just decided to make that decision, take action, make the call, and just keep going. Don't look back. And when we start to question ourselves, the self doubt and procrastination, oy, those are enemies. Those will keep you stuck. Ask me how I know. And what was really monumental in that moment on the stage was afterwards. Well, let me back up a minute. So when I was on that phone call and he's like, oh, so you have somebody else? I thought, have somebody else? So like that didn't even occur to me. No. And then again, just spoke up and said, I have me. So you don't need to be ready and have another relationship, because if you haven't addressed your own issues, because it takes two to have a relationship. And let me say, you want a healthy relationship starting with yourself. So if you don't do the inner work on yourself first and let yourself sit with you and to truly have that love come through first before you enter into another relationship. Otherwise, you're just going to repeat that same pattern and it's not going to work out. And there's more heartbreak. So I was so happy and grateful that I was able to say, no, I have me. And at the end of that, they played Mandisa's song Overcomer. So it took a lot, but you can overcome a lot of obstacles, a lot of hurt, and you don't have to stay stuck and you don't have to settle. there's more. There's greatness in you. So let's release your greatness.
That's awesome. That's inspiring. And so I want to touch on that just a little bit more. So when, what obviously what made you made the call is you said, I'm worth more than I'm getting, right? I love myself too much to be in this toxic relationship. What caused you to really have that light bulb moment where like, I'm worth it, I deserve better, I need to take action now? Like what was it that was like going through your mind there?
Well, it took a coach, when he coached me, because sometimes, again, a Les Brown quote, you can't see the picture when you're in the frame. So you maybe aren't seeing it. You're thinking, oh, it's fine, or you keep making excuses for the other person or yourself, and you keep putting up with things you shouldn't put up with. And it took him really asking me those questions. And then, like I said, when he first like, well, you do know this is a toxic relationship, right? And I'm like, oh man, I really love this guy. And yet I knew I had to make that decision. So, but I couldn't see it myself. So I think when we're ready to listen to outside sources and get a coach in particular that really knows and has that expertise, that others that they've been through their own stuff, they help other people transform, because we're not always aware or ready to admit it, and we stay in that stuck spot. So I think sometimes it takes someone else to point things out to us, and then it's up to us to make the choice from there. It's like, what do we want to do now?
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's great advice, and I think that could help, anybody, especially if they're struggling in their relationship as well. Take a step outside of your life to look at your life and really just see what's going on from a biased opinion, unbiased opinion, and yeah.
And another thing that just came to mind is addictions is the word, because sometimes we just cover things up and we find comfort, so to speak, in addictions. And I'm not just talking about drugs and alcohol, but you can even be addicted to a relationship. Addiction is what we're pulling towards, and it makes us feel good for a minute or so. But if we take a better look, is it really helping us or harming us? And that's when we got to decide, I need to align this and get rid of the resistance and make a choice so that I can be all I am truly made to be. And then there are things we want to stop, or things, we either are pulling stuff towards us or pushing things away. And we just got to look at all those things. What's ideal? What's not ideal? And then just take them one at a time, because you get, just one step at a time. You don't have to change everything at once. That's too overwhelming. Overwhelm's not a good place to be. Again, been there. Sometimes I find myself still in those moments in all areas of life. I mean, maybe there's too many dishes to do. It's like, even my dad used to tell me, maybe there's a pile that needs sorting through. And he's like, just take one piece of paper, one item, and say, where does this go? And throw it away or file it, or, so break it down into bite-sized pieces and know that you don't have to do it alone, and take small baby steps. And then all of a sudden you look around and say, wow, look at my life now. So it's possible. Anything's possible. So the biggest thing is never give up.
That's really good sound advice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so once you have your life somewhat sorted out and you feel ready, I'd like you to spend a minute telling people how they can travel the world, see beautiful, amazing things, go to beaches, stay in hotels, and then write about it so they get paid to travel and see the world and meet people, aka travel writing. It sounds very exciting to me. Tell me a little bit about it if you don't mind.
Oh, well, now you're talking about one of my favorite things to do. So not only have I written books and children's books and articles, but my best writing that I love the most is the travel writing. In fact, I've been on a few press trips, and that means that the PR people, the tourism boards, if you know how to hook up with them, and they'll give you some perks. Maybe they'll pay for a couple places, a couple nights of places to stay, things to do, some meals. So it comes with some perks in exchange for then writing a couple articles to promote them and these places you've been to. So one of my favorite ones I went to was Outer Banks, North Carolina. And this one restaurant, and he has this chef board, he calls it, and he was sliding it in front of our whole group, and it was amazing food. So I wrote about that and about, oh my goodness, this retired sheriff in the town, and he does a tour of that whole area, and there's a lot of history there. So everything you like to do. In fact, I just contacted a couple more people because I got invited to speak in Florida at a retreat. And so I'm like, well, how am I going to maximize this trip? So, and that's where I find, okay, who needs me? Where can I add value? And then write articles. And then, of course, you have to pitch the articles to certain editors and all of that. So there's a whole process. In fact, I wrote an ebook of, how to do it yourself, of here are the steps. And then there's a way of doing it yourself or do it with you, do it for you. So there's all different options in the travel writing, but it certainly gives you one avenue to travel to more places and line it up with what are your interests? Like I love to kayak. So let me think. We were in Ocala, Florida. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but anyway, I'm going back there too. And I got to do kayaking, and it was all part of the agenda they set up for us. So that was a great adventure. So I love the travel adventures that matches up with my travel writing, and whether I write about it or not, and in some form I'm going to, whether I pitch a story, I'm still going to share it maybe in a blog or, just because that's what I do.
That's nice. And you made me think about something I hadn't thought about before. So I guess, so would you say if you're a good enough travel writer, you can get all your expenses paid? Or what percentage would you say, like, what's the scale look like?
Yes, it depends. Like I've learned how to travel write and learn different things of like who to pitch and what it includes. So it varies, but the ones I've been on, I also paired it with a writer's retreat. So there was a little out of pocket in getting there. But then I've had my writer friends who even their airfare was covered. So it just depends, what the each individual tourism board's looking for. And there's things like different groups you can be part of too that are looking to assign you. Like you partner with them and like, hey, we need somebody to cover this story here, and then they'll, you know, you might get that story. So there's a lot of different ways to go about it. A lot of opportunity.
Okay. Okay. So if we got people out there and they're like, well, I love to travel and I could write about it to help offset my expenses to try and make this a profession. Um, I guess my first question would be, who are they? How do we identify that this is a good fit for them? And if they book an appointment with you, how are you gonna get them to where they want to be?
Yes, well, first I'd ask, what are they looking for? Is that what they want to do, is actually do the travel writing, or just learn how to travel more in general? And I can, first start them off with my ebook that gives the basic steps. And from there, I can even, tutor them and teach them how to go further. So kind of be their writing mentor in a way, whether it's the travel writing mentor, because I'm also helping someone write her book. So anything to do in the writing space, I pretty much, if I'm not the one to guide someone through it, I at least can consult and hook you up with the right people.
Yeah, I would be willing to wager that a lot of this would come in the form of connections. Like you have connections here, connections there, and they can offer different things. Is that fair
Right.
to say? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Lots of possibilities.
That's good. That's good. Um, does anyone else have any questions for Lori or comments? Anything?
I just want to add in too that
Please.
if you're not even sure, you know, starting with your ideal story, and that takes some explaining. What do I mean by that? But if, for instance, I can picture myself travel writing and going here and going there, like getting that, like talking about it and getting that in writing, and then figuring out, okay, here's where I am now, here's where I want to be. How do I get there? So that's kind of how I help people through that process.
So you're saying basically you find out what their end goal is and you create them a roadmap on how to get there.
Right.
That's good. That's good.
That includes not just travel writing, but the whole breakthrough and goals, and getting rid of the resistance, and aligning everything the way they want their life to look.
That's good. That's good. What would you say your strongest point is? Where you could really maybe touch someone's life or help them discover something or I don't know.
I need to know, like, for them to give themselves permission to dream and tap into their true passion. Because so many people think, oh, well, I'm in this job, or I have to be stuck there because I can't afford this, or like they're not seeing how to have a different life, or even, transitioning is a good word. And, facing the obstacles, the fears, the doubts, and then making that shift. In fact, speaking of facing things, I don't know what it looks like in your view for all of you watching me, but I just want to mention my story of how my face may look a little deformed, or like, oh, what's the matter with her face? And that's one of the things I needed to overcome, is when I got hit with Bell's palsy in 2019, and it didn't totally recover yet, but I wanted to hide my face. It just was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to show up looking like this? But yet now I look at my face differently. It 10x is my value, because my face tells a story of all the things I've overcome, and I did it. And you can too, whatever that looks like for you.
Wow, that's beautiful and touching. Yeah, no, and that's great. Yeah. I always love who you are because it's part of who you are. And yeah, no, that's awesome. That's touching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here. Um, one more question. I am trying to ask this to everybody. Who's the person in the world right now that needs the book with you the most? What are they going through right now?
Who needs to book with me the most?
Who can you help the most? Or if they're watching, you're like, book with me. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna get you there.
Yes. I'd say anyone who feels discouraged or defeated, anyone that thinks, oh, that's not for me. Well, let's find out. So even just of discovering, just having that conversation. And then from there, we can either dig deeper, say, okay, this was great, maybe just having a few golden nuggets from that one discovery call. And then you can decide, okay, yeah, this was helpful and I wanted, work more with you. Or, oh, that's just what I needed. But you don't know until you show up. So that's one thing I've learned through some female entrepreneur friends of mine. It's all about showing up and then expressing yourself, giving yourself permission to speak up, and just what's on your heart and mind. Let's just explore that. Because if you just go same thing, different day, and just feeling hopeless or there's nothing more for you. Oh, that's just for everybody else. So, like I thought, oh, I had to be well known or rich to write a book. That was a lie that I was believing. So those limiting beliefs, and boy, it's taken a lot of courage to say, all right, I'm going to show up, because that's 90% of it is showing up. And that the other thing I learned too is so many people, you feel like you're in a competition and comparison and competition, but why not complete each other instead of compete against one another? And then that really brings even more value to see how we can help one another and even collaborate and have that type of approach. It's like there's too much dog eat dog, or you know, that'll make you weary.
Yeah, that was awesome, and I've actually never heard that one before. Complete, not compete. That's good.
Yes. Yeah. And
Uh,
therefore, I've done a lot of co-author opportunities. So if someone says, well, I kind of maybe want to write my story or write a book, but a whole book, which isn't as hard as you think. But another thing to do is write one chapter, as I can hook you up with a lot of co-author opportunities as well.
Nice. Dimitri?
I was going to give a comment. You mentioned dog eat dog being prevalent in our society. Another term for that is also Machiavellianism. So there's a lot of that going on, unfortunately.
Yes. Thank you for saying
Yeah.
that.
But yeah, no, I felt like the short answer to that question I asked you is stuck. If you are stuck, book an appointment with Lori. She'll get you unstuck. You may be in a spot you don't know what to do next. You may be feeling overwhelmed. You just be like, what do I do? That's who needs to talk to Lori from what I've heard and what I've seen. And I appreciate it. And I totally agree with you. 90% of life is showing up, if not more. You just show up. You don't even know. You don't even look at where you're going. You just look at the moment and you show up and you do that. And I can tell that you have a lot of courage. And I think that's what's gotten you here, whether on stage to call that guy or just take action in your own life. You definitely do seem like you have a lot of courage, and I commend you for it.
Thank
Um,
you. So I used to be
um,
that quiet, invisible little girl that, like, no, I don't, and I lived in fear. And it's like, no, that's not our best. Like, don't let fear stop you. Even if you have
yeah,
to do it afraid.
yeah. No, fear can either fear does shape people. Some submit to it and some combat it like you did with courage. And so that's great. No, that's awesome. Um, any last words for anyone out there?
I would just say, I hope you've taken some golden nuggets, and I'd love to know if people want to find me on social media or anything and share a comment, any takeaways they've had, and connect with me. I also have a link tree that's the Lori Factor, Lori, and you can find me on social media. So let's stay connected. I would love to know where everyone's at in their life, and again, see how we can possibly help one another. I just want to say, I send just love and compassion and encouragement to everyone.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for watching. As always, you can book an appointment with Lori on telehealthtoday.net. Thank you for your patience with the website. Should be ready any day. But yeah, no, great message. Let's complete one another instead of competing with one another. So, Lori, it's a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. Thank you all for watching.
Thank you. Bye for now.
No.